from Miami University in the United States. Okay. And we also have next to him, we have Khadijatu Jallo, a retired journalist. We also have the next one, we have our Da Costa, okay, from NSI. And Nyang Sanneh Institute. Okay, that is the NSI. Okay, so for that being the case, we can start, and we have the students and the others, inshallah. So we are going to start with prayers. Can we have somebody from the students to come and pray for us?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك الرحمة إنك أنت الوهاب اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تزلزلنا إذا شئت سهلا.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to start the program with Auntie Khadija Jallo, inshallah.
I think we are still in the morning. Good morning, everyone. This is a very important day to us, African Liberation Day. We should remember who we are as an African and fight for this liberation that was initiated by our forefathers since in the 1950s. You can see how I dress. It can tell you who I am, a Fula woman. So this is how we should be. So I just have a few things to share with you on this day. Since 1958, when Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana convened the first conference of independent states, its kick started from there. And when we are saying Africa is the whole of Africa, you are students and you will understand. It's not only the Gambia or Senegal or Guinea-Conakry, but a lot of countries contributed to do something. But still now to no avail, because we are colonized then, and we say we have our independence today, but we are still not fully independent. So that is why commemorating this day to recall and reflect and see the way forward is very important. Recently, you see in every social media, you hear of Ibrahim Traore, another hero that have just risen to continue the fight. Because we are rich in resources, we are rich in knowledge, but the white people would not allow us to prosper. We have to depend on them. So to be independent and self-reliant, we have to fight for, because we can and we can do it. An African, to remember who you are. He said, one point is assert your intellectual contributions to humanity. Strive for Africa's liberation, remain strong. And how can we be strong? We have to unite to be strong. We should embrace our diversity of cultures and ethnicity. You know, in the Gambia, not only in the Gambia, but in Africa, we have different cultures and different ethnic groups. But we have to respect each other and accept each other so that we can move as Africans. We should also embrace our brilliance and genius of our people, defend our communal values, and we should stop the exploitation of resources, because we are full of resources in Africa. But the Europeans or the other part of the world continue to loot our resources. They'll take our raw materials and make it finished product and bring it back for us to buy. Why can't we take our own raw materials, process it, and also sell it instead of waiting to be fed by them from our own resources? We should also stand to eliminate organized crimes, especially the youth. Before you enter into any thing that will bring conflicts, know the sources, know where you are going, and because if not, especially in conflicts, we lose our youth and women. So we should fight for that. We also support our entrepreneurs and businesses. How will we support them? We have Gambian-made things, but sometimes we tend to say that the value is low. We are going in for the European made. So we should continue to support our own people, our own made things, so that we will go forward. We should also embrace accountability and transparency at all levels of human interactions. This is a big challenge for Africa. Accountability and transparency. We should fight to be accountable to our doings, and then to stay transparent to whatever we do. We should stop modern slavery and neocolonialism. We should also uphold our African family values. There are a lot of rules and regulations that the Europeans are imposing on Africa. But let us take what is useful to us and not forget our own family values. Respecting our elders, loving each other, sharing and caring. We should also endeavor to protect our women and children. Honor our elders. We invest our children so that the future will be bright for all of us. We should stop glorifying corruption and people who are corrupt. We see what they did, and also we still promote them. We should hold them to account. Then society will move. Let us also endeavor to silence the gun and end arms conflicts. Because in any conflicts that you think the gun can solve it, it ends up with roundtable discussion. So why not we understand each other without bringing the gun in between us? I think that is what I have, and I will not be happy if I didn't see it in the local language. Because as I always remind you, let us remember who we are. So kontaan naa trop because xam naa ne ñu bari dégguñ fi Pël ni kon Pël lay laaka. Kontaan naa trop tey pour célébrer commemorate Africa Liberation Day ànd si ak Daddy Jobe Comprehensive School. Soo gisee ñu choose school bi because yéen rek a war a mun a indi change bi nit ñi soxla ëllëg. Xam naa ni dégg ngeen li ma fi wax yëpp si English waaye baax na ba tey ma leeral comme ni ma leen waxee da ngeen war a fàttaliku yéenay kan ñun Afrique am nañ lu bari loo xam ne war nañoo yóbbu kanam waaye lu tax ñu ngi des gannaaw ba tey because tubaab bi ñun lañ nekk di use ñoom ñuy dem kanam so suñ demee ba réalise loolu te suñ maam yi xamoon nañ ko xeex nañ ko depuis jamono Kwame Nkrumah déggoon ngeen fi Ifin Gaddafi suñ président leaders yi nga xam ne dañ daan try well yëpp tubaabee jaar ci ron rek yuusaat suñ oon nit ñi pour rey leen so loolu tax na ba tey war nañoo eewu jàppaat fi maam yooyu noonu jàppoon wala faytkat yooyu noonu fuñ xeexoon pour ñu gis ni Afrique benn la ñu téye ci jafe-jafe yi bari na nag because soo buggee tukki fa sax soo génnee fii nii nga amee sa ID card nga dem Sénégal léegi-léegi ñu ne la fayal 1000 francs te ECOWAS la ñu ne te waruloo fay yu bëree fa yoo xam ne ñu ngi ci kayit yi te duñ koy jëfandikoo soo ñun ñoo war a taxaw rek pour génne loolu nga gis ne Afrique nekk na benn kon du ma bari wax compagnie yi wax bari nañ maa ngi em fii rek di leen gërëm di leen sant.
Thank you very much, Madam Khadijatu Jallow. She has said it all. Yes. The only thing that we are going to do is just to add on to what she said. Yes, you are the future leaders of tomorrow, and you are all Africans. You need to take Africa forward. And how are you going to do that? As she said, we follow the footsteps of our forefathers. Who are they? They are the Pan-Africans. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. Okay, Muammar Gaddafi, Haile Selassie. They are the founders of this, and we have to follow their footsteps to bring Africa together and to develop Africa. So from there, we are going to our next speaker, Uncle Sanneh Faye, member of the executive in the NSI. Okay, welcome, Uncle.
Good morning, everybody. Sometimes I like to stand up a little bit and talk.
A teacher.
A teacher.
A teacher is always a teacher.
Yes. I'm very much delighted. Good day to everybody. Khadija just finished it all up, you know. But basically, our institute, Nyang Institute, these are the kind of things we want our children to know. The Nyang Institute is basically, we are educationists, and we like to make sure that our people learn certain things. But this day is very, very important. To begin with, I'll do a historical preview of how we got here. It's a big stuff, but basically, if I ask you in 1958, how many independent states did we have? Some of you probably might not know. Anyone knows? Okay, in 1958, Ghana had independence in 1957. But in 1958, Ghana, under Kwame Nkrumah, decided that we need to get more people, you know, to be liberated on the continent of Africa. So we need to call people around the world Africans. And we are not the only people here. Not only you have Africans in Jamaica, you have Africans in the United States, you have Africans everywhere. But the main focus was here, we will call an independent African conference, where all the Africans around the world, where Bob Marley and Haile Selassie and others will say that if you are black, you are African, to come to Ghana. So they went to Ghana. That was called the All African People's Conference. We need to know some of this stuff, because you're going to go out in the world where people are going to challenge you, saying you haven't done anything, you haven't done. But out of that, there were only 8 independent states. And out of these 8 independent, they were Ghana, Liberia, Morocco, Tunis, Libya, and one Sudan, and Libya. They decided that out of that conference, they were going to form an organization where they can help the rest of the Africans on the continent to fight for themselves, to destroy bondage, because Africans were not liberated in South Africa. We later heard about Mandela. Mandela was helped because of the APRP, the result of the conference. Actually, some of the leaders helped bring Mandela to train him as a guerrilla fighter. These were Africans, but you can see, if you look at the map of Africa, normally when we do this, we like to bring the map of Africa so you could see, you know, where we are and how we are related to the world. But just the case of Mandela, most of the countries that helped Mandela, they were northern countries, Egypt especially, but Algeria especially. Algeria helped train him. And Mandela, after he went to fight, he was jailed. You know, when he came out, the first countries he went to was Libya and Egypt and a few other countries, Cuba and stuff like that, because there was solidarity among them. The Africans that attended the conference, I'm just giving you a historical proof. I know we don't have much time, but it is out of this conference of Ghana that the OAU was formed 5 years later. 58 and 63 it was formed. And between 58 to 63, we rose from 8 countries to 30 to 32 countries. And it is out of this that helped growing. 2 years later, Gambia joined in 1965 also to be part of the OAU. Now, you have a continent that is bigger than Europe, bigger than America, can control most of Asia. And our population was so small, but we were ranked as the lowest in the world. And the result of that was we came from a system of slavery and neocolonialism and colonialism. You could find that the Africans were so divided among themselves that anybody could come and rule us. They had a conference in 1884 where today the map of Africa was carved out. Every country in Europe, even the poorest, were able to have a colony in Africa. Africa had all the resources, but Africans were the poorest. And the result of that was, because of the slavery that happened, we came out of 3 things. We had feudalism in Africa, then you have slavery in Africa, then you have colonialism. You have a country like Portugal. Ghana's resources was more than Portugal, but Portugal was able to rule some countries in Africa which were 3 times more than Europe. So they developed a system. Out of that system, they were able to charge us English, French, and Portuguese. And once they did that, when you do a slave is you reorient him, you change his thinking. And once you change his thinking, everything you tell him to do, that's what he will do. So they start educating them. And what they educated them, just like she was saying, in European languages. And when they started European languages, Britain, France, Portugal, Spain did not have a destiny. But these were the most predominant. And they made such, they created schools. In the schools, they were taught European education. So Africans haven't done anything good, Africans can't do this. When actually Africans helped create civilization from Egypt. Even the alphabets and the numerals that they used came out of Africa. Africa built civilization 1,000, 2,000, up to 3,000 years before Europe rose up. But as they created schools, they chose Africans who can do some things. And they created few universities out of that. One was in Sierra Leone, it was called Fulbe and others. Then in Nigeria, and in Ghana, and in Kenya, and Uganda, Makarera, all those stuff. Out of these institutions, they were able to institute learning centers where they take Africans and send them there. And what they teach them was only law. We didn't have doctors. We didn't have agriculturists, you know. So you find that what they brought out was law, and who else can understand the language of the master better than the lawyer? Because you've been trained in law, you understand it. The villagers they don't care less because they are not criminals. We didn't even have a system where you can call a prison. Most African countries you go, traditionally, you ask them, what's the name of, what do you call a prison or a prisoner? Yeah, what you talking about? We never had that because everybody worked and everybody was straight. Of course, we had criminals, but the way we dealt with criminals was totally different. But I'm diverting from it just to give you an idea of how they were able to institute some things. Because once they colonized, the people accepted it, they had an army, they had everything. And it is out of this that they create an elite of Africans that can rule the continent. And that's why they were able to get them together to make sure that this one is better than this one is better than this one. And once you create that with Africans or any other people, you'll be able to conquer them. And this is what happened. They changed the system. When slavery was abolished, they changed the system to colonialism. Colonialism is a system that precedes neocolonialism. You leave the slaves in their country, but you send people to educate them to change how the master wants them to do. So you do find that they created schools, and once they create schools, they create what? First, churches, just like you had in Islam too. Islam was not that much of a thing, but they too created this thing, enslavement. So you do find that we have been attacked so much that our society was destroyed. Now, to organize a society that has been destroyed for so long is very, very hard. So that when we came to get independence, the guys who were there for African Liberation Day, most of them today are gone. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown because Kwame Nkrumah said that Africans must have an army, they must have one currency, they must do everything for themselves. They cannot take their products and send it to Europe. Europe delivers it, makes it, and sends it back to Africans, to consume. They didn't like that. Up to Gaddafi, I'm just fast forwarding. Gaddafi, this was one of the main things too. He refused to use the oil of Libya for America or Europe. He was using it for the people. And he called for a day where Africans, we all need to sit around like this and look at ourselves. Why are we so hated in the world? If you think you are not hated, you get out of here and try to go to Europe. Everywhere you go to Europe and America, you are looked at with disdain. Because they think that our skin is not worth this thing. And we have leaders who succumb to that kind of nonsense. And so you find that the historical paradox becomes very evident. Today, you had African children going the back way. You all know what the back way is. 300 years, even before that, Africans were the only race of people that never wanted to go to Europe or America. Why? Because they were taken as slaves. Now, 200 years later, Africans have independent, so-called, they call themselves. African children will jump in the Atlantic Ocean, where sharks are, to swim, to find an escape to Europe. Isn't that sad? Our ancestors used to run away from America and Europe. We were the only people. Europeans were packing their bags, heading to Europe and America. That's how we built America. America wasn't built by this. If you go to Louisiana and other states, and even Canada, this was built by African slaves. And those that were in the islands were growing what? Cotton, rice, sugar. Europe had nothing. And America, we taught them how to grow rice. You can research this. In Louisiana, they said the Mandingos used to be so much price because they were good in rice cultivation. Research this, I'm telling you. Don't be just talking so you will know. Because some of our people are still going by the sea to make sure they can go to Europe. Europe didn't have anything that didn't come out of Africa. But African children, up to today, 2021, in the 21st century, we have Africans thinking that they can join a dingy ship to go to Spain or Portugal or America. Even our villagers who haven't been to school, they know that you cannot go from Tangier to Ngor or to St. Louis on a dingy boat and survive, much less to go all the way to Spain and elsewhere. So this is all lack of education, and lack of guidance by our people, because our leaders, most in Africa, are not united. Look at us. Anybody can come to Africa and do what they want. 54 countries. You have no army. You have no universities that teach the same thing. You cannot produce anything that your people can do. And your children are getting into dinghies or canoes to make sure they can go to Spain. In Spain and Italy, if you go there, you see Africans that don't know that they were better off in Africa than they are better off here. So, in essence, African Liberation Day forces us to learn who we are, what we need to do, and how we need to unite so that we can save Africa and our people all around the world. But Pan-Africanism must grow out of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uncle. I think the Fulas could not speak Sereria, right? Yeah. Thank you very much, Uncle Fai. I think once a teacher is always a teacher. Yes. You have said it all, and I think you would have been. I think you were a history teacher, right? Yes. Yes, because I feel it. All what you have said are the things that we normally teach, and I am also a history teacher. Yeah. So he started with the NSI, talking about the importance of the NSI, Nyang Sanneh Institute, by organizing this program for us here in Jobe, which makes it very, very important. Let me remind that again. Okay, so he also continued on talking about the history of the African liberation. Where does it start? From slavery to colonialism and to neo-colonialism. As Kwame Nkrumah said, when they were fighting for independence, the enemy was colonialism, but today the enemy is neo-colonialism. Yes. Thank you very much for that. And he also included that we have to be one, the oneness of Africa. And that is the only way in which Africa can go forward. As Kwame Nkrumah said, there are supposed to be one army, one national assembly, one president, one currency. Yes. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause again. Yes. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Awa Da Costa. Awa Da Costa, you are welcome.
Morning, everybody. I am Awa Da Costa. I work with the Nyang Sanneh Institute for Social Research and Justice. It's a pleasure to be here today. But most importantly, as young people, I will talk to you from the view of a young person vis-a-vis the African Liberation Day. So for the discussions, we will touch on what it means to be liberated and the role of young people in carrying a positive attitude towards building a strong and sustainable African society. The Gambia is a very small country if you look at it, but the demographic of youth in this country constitutes more than half of the Gambian population. More often than not, young people for the past years have started to rise up against what? Corruption, to rise up against lack of accountability, to rise up against low standards of living, but most importantly, to rise up to be included in decision making. The Gambia is part of a sub-regional body, and it's also part of what? The African Union, right? What does this mean? that as much as the African Union should take ownership of the Gambian people should have local ownership of initiatives that seek to drive us to growth. But also young people of the Gambia must stand up against any form of insecurity, any form of issue that stands between us and our growth. Having positive drives toward development is very, very important. You know, when you talk all the time, you would hear people say, young people are the leaders of tomorrow. But we are the leaders of today. And if you look at us in the offices, in the schools, in civil society, even in the international community, our presence is being felt. And this tells us one thing, and that is if we come together in unison, we're able to achieve more than we put our minds to. So in this regard, with regards to development in the Gambia particularly, we have a lot of work to do. But also if you look at the area of peace and security, young people have a huge role in regards to peace and security, especially now that the Gambia is, you know, in its transitional justice period, because we emerged from a dictatorship. And now we are going towards a democratic consolidation to make sure Gambia is so democratic that even if another ruler comes, another president comes, and they want to be dictatorial, to be difficult for them to change the system. But in doing this, young people should be included. When we say young people should be included, know your rights, but know your responsibilities. I think more often than not, we always ask what the government can give. What can the elderly give? We normally don't hold ourselves accountable. If we want to hold the state accountable for corruption, if we want to hold the state accountable for embezzlement, if we want the state to provide us good jobs, if we want the state to not just give us education, access to education, but access to quality education, if we want the rights of women and girls to be granted in this country, if we want young people to take part in decision making, be in the national assemblies, be in the cabinets, be in the judicial system, young people need to ask themselves a question. And this is, what can we do to contribute? What can we do to make sure we occupy these seats? It's rather unfortunate in Gambian politics, mostly we are what? We are the mobilizers. I will talk about politics a lot because in this country, a lot of our problems starts with politics, especially with regards to young people. We don't hold government accountable because we belong to the party, the incumbent party, for instance. And if other young people are holding government accountable because of our partisanship, we tend to talk down against them. We are not united, and until we get united, we would continue to suffer from all these I've mentioned earlier. So democracy is a very important tool for our development in the Gambia. We've seen what happened from 1994 to 2016. People were killed, people were enforcedly disappeared, people were tortured, people were unlawfully dismissed, right? If we should ask in the room, probably we would have a lot of victims of the former regime. It's either it was done to your direct family member or you know someone that it was done to. But why did that go on for too long? It's simple. If we have the diaspora trying to fight for the Gambia, but we have Gambians who abet corruption and bad governance, it is going to continue. And who are the strong force to stop all these vices in our Gambian environment? It is young people. Must we take part in fights or in strides that are going to downgrade and underestimate our efforts? No. But should we just sit and complain? No. Take part in politics. When I say take part in politics, people think politics is just, you know, I have to come and stand as a National Assembly member, or I have to be behind a political party, I have to be on top of the gele-geles when they are going for meetings, because that is what we do. Or I have to take my telephone in this digital era and insult anybody that is against my party. That is not what you being involved in politics means. Most of you here would be 18 and above. Are you looking forward to vote in 2026? You are looking forward to vote in 2026? Well, that is a good thing because that is your responsibility. But how well do we also respect the laws of the Gambia? We live in an era of what? It was mentioned, imperialism and neocolonialism. There are structures that have been built by our colonial masters, and those structures are highly entrenched, from our bureaucracy to the way we run the state to the way we see each other, even in our local communities. What has this done? This has jeopardized what? Our ability to contribute, our ability to think, and our ability to be what? Realistic regarding our development. So if you finish these lectures today, ask yourself some questions. How do I contribute? We all come from homes, we all come from communities. How sustainable would this lecture be? Are we just going to talk about it here and that's it? You go home, you don't talk to anybody about this, it doesn't create any impact. That is not what NSI seeks to achieve. So when people from the older generation who have actually been through the hooks and crooks of the Gambia and in the international community come to Daddy Jobe to speak to students of Daddy Jobe, when I was going to school, I did not have this opportunity. I did not graduate too long, but we did not have opportunities like this. Mostly we look at people in the TVs, but we cannot bring ourselves to say, okay, this is what we should do, that is what we should do. Young people of Africa should rise up and think for themselves. Be innovative. How do we move forward? How do we become catalysts of change, not just for the country, but starting from your own communities? We all come from communities. Young women, how well do you want to get involved in decision making? How many women do we have in the National Assembly? Who knows how many women we have in the National Assembly? How many young people do we have in the National Assembly? And you know what this means? First, I can see we are not very interested when it comes to issues of decision making. And when we leave this door today, I want us to build interest in that. Second, for young women, I think it's high time we start to take part in decision making. It's not nice that more often than not, decisions are being made for us without us. So I would just say thank you to NSI and Daddy Jobe. But before I leave, I'll talk about two things. That is advocacy with regards to justice and equality, and the issue of transparency. All of you are advocates in this room. You are all activists in this room. Probably because you have not embraced the art of advocacy or the art of activism. Most often than not, things happen wrong in our homes, things happen wrong in our community. But due to the culture of silence, or because it's none of my business, these days, every day, when it comes to issues of sexual and gender-based violence, you are seeing people beating their wives with hammers on social media, right? You've seen the surge in rape cases in this country. All this boils down to what? Our security as young women and our security as young people. So until we start to take over, until we start to rise against neocolonialism and imperialism, until we start to think about our realities and start to use African solutions to solve African problems, things like this are going to continue. But most of it is what? Hold your governments accountable. Seek for transparency and accountability. If the government is accountable, if the government is transparent, it would deter them from taking decisions on behalf of us Gambians that are going to what? Further entrench us and sell our future to the West, per se. But also to all forms of what? Slavery. Especially what? Mental slavery. Yes, I would stop here for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Awa Acosta, for that very important speech. Okay, Awa did a lot, and as a youth, just like you and I, she is participating in the development of the country. And she is also urging every one of you, because we are all in the same generation, you and I and her, we are all in the same generation, and she is doing her quota in the development of Africa, okay? And she is urging all of you to be part of it. Okay, so she discussed about the development of Africa and you as a youth becoming part of it. How are you going to become part of this? After this program, what are you going to do? Ask, as he said, you ask yourself, what is my role as a Gambian, as an African? How to develop Africa? How can I participate? And then she gave examples of the way that you can participate. And those are strengthening democracy in our country, Africa and the Gambia in particular. Respect for human rights and avoid human rights violations that we face every single day. Okay? She also said we participate in politics. How are we going to participate in politics? We have the National Assembly. Let us participate. We have, every 5 years, we normally have elections. Be part of those who are going to choose the leaders of us, the ones that we think that they are going to develop Africa. Okay? So we participate in the voting in elections. Okay, so for that being the case, thank you very much, Awa. Yes, and then we will go to the next speaker, who is Professor Abdullah Sen, who is a retired professor, right? Retired professor at Miami University in the United States of America. So today we are going to learn a lot. This is an opportunity. Most of us here, we have never sat in front of a professor speaking. Then that means that person is going to tell us something that we have never known before. So a professor is big, right? Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So give him a round. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you all doing? I am very, very happy to be here. And I want to thank the administration here at the school for inviting us to be with you and discuss with you. It is really a big privilege for us because we don't usually have the occasion to discuss politics, economics, and other issues with students your age. What I find particularly very interesting is the fact that there are so many young women That's okay. What I find particularly very impressive is the fact that there are so many young women who are involved in this school and also in society. This is remarkable. And I want to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. If you look at the National Assembly, if you look at the arena of politics, very few women participate in the political arena. So I want to encourage young women in particular, and the young men who are here, and we thank you for coming. I want to thank you for coming and to gain some interest and perspective about events in Gambia, but more importantly throughout the continent of Africa. This is a very important occasion. We want to thank the principals, we want to thank the staff, we want to thank you, the students, for coming to this event. Most of the things I wanted to talk about have been clearly articulated by the other panel members. All I will do basically is to repeat what they have said. Get involved. Get involved in the politics of this country. This is your country. The future of this country is in your hands. And we are older. And by the end of maybe 10, 15 years, most of us would have been gone by then. It is your responsibility. It is not an easy responsibility because there are so many mores, there are so many values that work against women in our society. But I must say, though, having gone to school in the 1960s and earlier, women in Gambia are doing a lot better. They are doing a lot better. But at the same time, I must also say that a lot more needs to be done. I want to encourage all of you, in whatever avenue of education you want to pursue it to the best of your ability, to ensure that you do your best, give it your best, and begin to question the mores, the values that we were brought up with. Women in our society have been basically marginalized. For the most part, they receive the least education. For the most part, they don't have the wherewithal to pursue education much further. They are reduced to domestic workers, basically. Very few women go up the ladder to become important decision makers. What I want to encourage you young women to do in particular, and the young men who are here, is to work hard. But as you work hard, question the system in which you function. The system is created to ensure that you are conformists. You follow the rules. You're rewarded. You're rewarded based, for the most part, on the rules that you follow. Question the rules. And you can do this in a nice way. And sometimes you may have to be more proactive. Sometimes you have to be more challenging. But you must begin to question the system as it was designed. For the most part, the system was not designed for you and I. The system was designed for those in power so that they can maintain their power, maintain their privileges, and so forth and so on. Africa Liberation Day is a very unique and a very important occasion. And I want to encourage all of you to dig into your books, learn about it, and become active participants, not only absorbers of knowledge. It's not enough just to absorb. I think it's important also to act. I think ultimately, the goal or the aim of education is to ensure that you become activists. You become members of a community that are engaged in changing society. Gambia needs a lot of change, be it based on gender, be it based on education. Any aspect of Gambia that you look at, you can realize very quickly that there is need for change. I want you to take the seat. I want you to take the banner. Don't be reduced into young women who only obey the rules. Question the rules. Challenge those in power. That is basically the essence of education, of a good education. Some of us, of course, have been trained in particular ways. We do the routines, we do the exams, we do the sports, and so forth and so on. But what is lacking in much of education, not only in Gambia, but perhaps throughout the world, is a lack of critical thinking. Critical thinking is paramount. You must begin to think outside of the box. You must begin to question what is being said. I, being a teacher, may not know it all. I must not be seen as somebody who knows it all. You must question what I say. I should also question what you say. In fact, this should be a dialogue. This should be a conversation. Because you all have some information. You have knowledge that is very impressive that you could also share with us. What I am saying at the end of the day is that you all need to be socially active in the Gambia. It is not enough. It is not enough to go to school or come to school, do your homework, help out at home, and so forth and so on. You must also be involved in getting to know the country you live in. How can I, in many ways, or in any way, help improve the condition of the poor in particular? How can I improve the living conditions of those in the rural areas of Gambia? I come from Kabul, and I grew up under very tough conditions in the 50s. So you are much more privileged than I am, which means you have a larger responsibility. You have an obligation to make things better for Gambians for the future. You are also very privileged in many ways. And you must use that power. You must use your knowledge, not only to get a job. It is important to get a job. But what you must also do is to help change the lives of the ordinary Gambians. The bulk of Gambia live, well, not anymore, but at one point, the bulk of Gambians lived in the rural areas. Many of them are coming now to the urban areas, looking for jobs. Jobs are hard to find. And the problems that come without having a job are so many that I cannot list them adequately. But some of you will probably know that the problem of hunger in our country is very high. Lack of medicine is another, among many, many others. The roads, the electricity, you name it. What I'm saying is our education must be focused on solving problems. It is not enough to have your GCE, A-levels, and go to university, come back, and join the bureaucracy. It's not enough. You are doing yourself a disservice, and a disservice to the community from which you come, and the country at large. You have to be, to some degree, an activist. You have to be activist. You have to be active in the daily running of this country as well as your neighborhood. I can go on and on and on. I'm a retired professor. But I will stop here to give you guys an opportunity to speak to us. Tell us what your concerns are. And together, hopefully, we can come up with a strategy that could push the Gambia in the right direction. I must say that the country needs a lot of work. A lot has been done, I must say. When I was growing up, we didn't even have roads. Now we at least have roads on both sides of the country. Medicine was minimal. Our population was about 300,000. Now we're about 2.5 million, perhaps even 3. So it's more complicated. But nonetheless, we must acquire the skills. We must have as our focus the country. Yes, we have to improve ourselves and our families. But if you improve, your neighbor is not improved, and your next day's neighbor is also not improved, it doesn't solve the situation. I think I'm imploring you all to be activists. What does it mean to be activists? Pay attention to what is going on politically, economically. Write, speak, act, do whatever it takes to make an impact in this country. This is your country. In the next 20, 30 years, most of us would have been gone. You guys would be the leaders. And I implore you to do the right thing. I implore all of you to do the right thing. Corruption in this country is rampant. We have to address it. Inequalities in this country is also rampant. This is something we need to address. And so many other things I could have listed. But what I'm saying is, it is not enough just to go to school. It is not enough to just have your GCE A-levels and go to the sixth form. At least that was what we did. I don't know what you do now. It's not enough. You have to work to change our country. It is your responsibility. There's no way to talk about it any other way. This is your responsibility. Yes, you have individual and family responsibilities, but you also have a national responsibility. Yes, I'm 18 years old, I'm 16 years, 17 years old. What can I do? There's a lot you can do. Being here today, I think is phenomenal. I am so happy that there are so many young women in this crowd. Because when I went to school many, many years ago, we had very, very, very few women or girls who were in school. So what I'm saying is, be an activist. Get engaged. Read, debate, do what it takes. Education is not only about passing exams. It is not only about passing exams. And I can tell you that. You have to be engaged in your community. You have to be engaged in society so as to push it further to make it better. It is not enough just to have a job at the Ministry of Finance or at the President's office, and you think you're a big shot now. Now you can do this, you can do that, you drive your SUV and so forth. I know most of you aspire for that. It's okay to do that, but there's a bigger mission. There's a larger mission, and that is to serve this community, to serve humanity, to serve our people. Because really, if you went to the provinces and see how we live, or how people live, it is very disconcerting. I urge you, as young people, to make up your mind to become activists, to ask questions, to challenge your teachers, and do what is right. Challenge your teachers, yes. That is important. The teachers don't know it all. The teachers don't know it all. And they are part of you, you are part of them. They came up from the same conditions. So what I'm suggesting to you is challenge your teachers to do better and be challenged as well to do better. Question your teachers. Don't take for granted what they tell you. Yes, you can listen to them and then inquire for yourselves what it is that they say. Just don't go to school to pass exams. And I say this because I have taught for over 30 years at universities in the US. And I urge you to be activists in your own rights, to learn about your society, know your people, and go to school primarily to serve them, primarily to serve the people. Yes, you can have your job, you can become an executive director, you can become a PAMSEC. Those are important. But to be in a position like that, you must avoid corruption. And I must say that the most number of people who are accused of corruption are people in higher positions of power. Those are not role models to emulate. These are not the people you want to be. Because sooner or later, you're going to fail. Absolutely, you're going to fail. I can keep going, but I'll stop here for now. Thank you so much.
He did a lot, and his speech was very, very remarkable. He started by addressing the students, like the women, or let me say, girls. Yes. So you have to participate, as he said, you have to participate in the development of Africa, in the development of your country. So there is something that he said that I like so much. That is, he said you challenge your teachers, right? Yes. But how are you going to challenge your teachers? You have to prepare first at home before you come to class. Okay? And that is the only way that you can challenge your teacher. Yes, but you just don't come and challenge your teacher like that. Okay? And also he mentioned something that I also like. That is, he said, don't go to school only to pass exams. But what? but to be part of the society, be part of change, be an activist, bring change in your society. How are you going to do it? As he said, use your knowledge, your education that you have acquired from school, and then you bring a change, right? Yes, I think, sir, what you said is many and very, very important for our life. So we are going to take your advice, and then we will be part of the change that we need in our country. Okay, thank you very much. We also have another thing that we're supposed to do. I don't know whether we start with that before question and answers. The students, some of them, they have poems that they want to recite, which is about development and development of Africa and the Gambia and the like. So we do that before the question and answers. Okay, then we can have one of them, Fatu, right? Fatu Jamme. We can start with Fatu Jamme.
I'm here to recite a poem entitled The Darkness of This World. The piece goes. I know it is hard to consume the bitter fact that this world is a dark place, but this is the hard fact. After sitting and thinking about the darkness of this world, I tremble, quiver, and vibrate out of fear. We now have politicians who deflate with our wishes and do not play their roles as expected. Now these publicly empowered, powerful leaders we voted in do not give us hope or serve as our source of protection of the indoor and outdoor of our nation. Because of their selfish interests, our own people have been brutalized, the wealth of the nation has been centralized. The poor is psychologically traumatized, criticized, and victimized because their own people believe that they are not civilized. Please, for heavenly sake, let's make this country in particular and the world at large a better place for the current and coming generation. I don't want my kids to undergo the same confusion. The darkness has forced us to sow composite and practicing things out of negativity will lead to massive destruction. They take advantage of their publicly empowered powers to empower disadvantageous dictators if resulting to our chief, putting the whole world into confusion, depression, and all forms of frustration. Maring, alongo ila palaso mimbe bulu ala takola ila mola sima. Woto nga diamo talanga doku wala fa katung wala nyin sate nafa. Progress can take place in the absence of peace and stability. Right now, in my native nation, the Gambia citizens has turned tribalist. The nation has turned to a nation of tribalism, and leaders have become unrealistic. Si, kang bengole ka yirwa wulu, andung atele ka nyato tafana wulu. The boy is crying, for the day fee is always given to her. We dream of elevating, but unfortunately we are falling. They look down on us as we aren't like them. My science teacher once told me that every person has a digestive and respiratory system. The poor are like you. They feel hungry too. We feel what you feel. Discrimination is the reason why some steal. Steal any food to eat. Stand on their own feet. Use the same oxygen and carbon dioxide to breathe. I know some elements of the region feel sympathy and empathy because you think you might never undergo poverty. Su dite nola wula mandi wala wula dite nola su mandi wala. Allah has given you wealth, then you should be a linking to reach to the poor. The poor has been depreciated, discriminated, isolated, and neglected. None of their moves have been evaluated. You don't even care whether they are frustrated. Ala lonko politiko menka mul dundi nyoko no wakatale akana barenteni ite betula janne fo jandi saya bina. Kon wax ma ban bes lañu neka bena ñu dimbalante jappalante neka bena mbolo. When will our politicians stop acting like dictators and money lovers? When shall we realize who we are and where we are heading to? I bet we are all having the same question in mind. Let the way be full of light. Let the sun shine. It is getting darker, so let's head to the bright side. The future we knew is running out of time. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you very much, Fatu. I am even crying. Huh? Yeah. Okay. let's have another person. We have Fat Kamara, right? Fat Kamara. Sorry, I'm crying.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before going forward, I would like to introduce myself for the benefit of those who don't know me. My name is Fatmata Kamara, a student from 11 Commerce A. I'm here to read a poem entitled about the world we are living in. We are living in the world of corruption, the world full of distraction. Currently, in my homeland, the Gambia, or the world at large, many youths are unemployed, though we have bigger dreams, but are all unattainable because of corrupt leaders who neither willing to help us suggest our talents. If an ordinary applicant applies for a job, he will be denied the job despite the qualification for the position. But if a family member or a relative applies for the job, he or she will be given the job even though he doesn't have the quality, the ability, and the capability to be given such responsibility. The requisite knowledge don't defend youths anymore in their walk of life. Some say the world has changed, but no, the world hasn't changed. It's our people that has changed. Dol sa ko dunia le falinta, bari hani dunia man fali. Ntol la falinta, na mol la falinta, ndaji kol falinta, an alabato sembo talat, kuma kende fo sembo talat, hasidi ya siyat, nyo bendo siyata, nyo kelendo siyata. Rayanta bi borina, hajo lo bi borina, politik dikta banitin dendi rayante. Palasi nyini la promiso siyata, bardamante palaso sotata, salary foro dunda fo poso kuliat, melie sije se nyini la. When we ask for a demand, they change public demand from major to minor like a poet changes his speech from battles to battles. It is my world, it is your world, it is our world, and we can make it to a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Fat Kamara. Omijasi, you're welcome.
Thank you. I am an African. I owe my being to the hills and valleys, the mountains, the glades, the rivers, the trees, to the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land. I am an African child. Good afternoon to you all. I am Umijasi of the Jobe Comprehensive School. And as we commemorate this day, I would like to pass on this message to my fellow Africans and Gambians. We are Gambians by nation, but Africans by race. It really confuses me when we Africans call our fellow African brothers and sisters as foreigners. Are we all not carrying the same blood, the same color, culture, and looks? Why can't we see ourselves as one and work together to fulfill our promise of one Africa? Unless we unite, the stolen dignity of our continent will never be restored. Why are we fighting amongst ourselves when it is our time to rise, to rebuild, to repair, healed from the scars marked on our Africa due to exploitation of resources by so-called white men, whose only interest was and is to drain our Africa and leave our grandmother Africa naked? Why is it normal for a black man to be killed like cockroaches, but the white man is untouchable? Why do our leaders see it normal to sentence us to death in our land, and the white man will be freed to go for imprisonment in his country with time limitation, even though they all committed the same crime? Why is the African child seen as a burden to the outside world? We are the mates, the slaves, even though now there is no more physical slavery, but yet still we are mentally enslaved. Why do our leaders, again, see it normal to give out our resources to the white men and leave us neglected? Our needs are no more attended to unless we go and beg, even though it belongs to us. Why beg it? It is our right to enjoy whatsoever thing that needs to be enjoyed in our nation and in Africa. The white man does not own us. Why do we belittle our language and make there a more spoken before we are seen civilized? Why can't an African become a hero of his continent without the fellow Africans putting fear into him? Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a beacon of African strength. I believe you have heard when Madam was talking about Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He is one of the persons that we, the young people, should look upon onto to make sure that our Africa reached to the point where we all wanted it to be. He says, and I quote, "They will tell us, you know, Thomas Sankara tried to do it like this, but where is he? He is dead. The Haitian president tried to do it like this. Where is he? He is dead. Gaddafi tried it like this. Where is he? He is also dead." These are the veiled statements made to us to instill fear, and then we also often see some young people trying to follow the footsteps in a different way. You can hear them say, "Such a person ruled like this, he is a supporter. Such a person ruled like this, he is imprisoned." All this to try to scare us, to make us cowards. There, I think they haven't understand something. When we say motherland or death, we mean it, because it has a full meaning. It is not just a phrase. Our struggles, we will continue our struggles. They have undoubtedly and sorely scared numerous African heads of states. You often see when we speak or when we have the opportunity to be in certain situations abroad, we often make the statements to call on African heads of states to wake up, take care of our youth, to be able to initiate our real development, where we are often misunderstood. Some have responded publicly to our statements because they feel targeted. But I can assure you, youth, that when we find ourselves in their corridors, these same heads of states tell us, "You are on the right track. This is what needs to be done to free Africa. This is what needs to be done for Africa to feel real empowered." This man is our last man standing for Africa's true liberation. If we don't come together and support him, we have truly failed our Africa. Therefore, I will urge my fellow young Africans to learn and make findings about our Africa, who we are, what we are, and where are we today. From the days of colonialism, when they make our forefathers slaves, now they are no more slaves, but we are still their slaves because we adhere to mental slavery without rising up and showing the world that we are Africans. We are powerful and we can take care of our own resources without those people coming to decide for us what we are going to do. They said we need to be activists. It starts from here. If not today, then never. I thank you all for your kindness.
That was a great speech. Just to remind you again, this is a program that is organized by the Nyang Sanneh Institute for Social Research and Justice. Okay? So if you have any question, please, on concerning the development of Africa or the African Liberation Day, about anything that you want to ask.
You talk about slavery back then. So, you know, that was slavery, and that was slave rights who collect slaves for the Europeans. So, my question is, who is the victim here? Is it our leaders or the Europeans? Who are to blame? Who were to blame, yeah. Yeah.
It's for me, right?
Yeah, it's for you.
Thank you very much for that question. So when we talk about slavery, yes, we were aware that we had slave masters, and especially during the time of the slavery, they used to be in the shores, and people who were caught for not paying debt, witchcraft, war captives were being sold as slaves. But you would agree with me that when slavery was abolished in the 1900s, a problem came. We had what? Commercial slavery. Then it became commercialized. We didn't have slavery, right? Okay, good. So one thing I always say, even when we used to be in history class, for how long would we rely on the issue of there was slavery? Most of the time we linked into the development that we have now, and it's very valid because of, you know, the structural issues we had at the time. But then slavery gradually develops toward colonialism. After slavery, we had colonialism. Now you ask yourself, why did we have colonialism? Because when slavery was abolished, we had the Industrial Revolution in Europe at the time. wanted what? Readily made markets. If they were going to produce stuff in Europe, they had to send it to Africa. Africa was what? A market for them. So then when this happened during colonialism, that also went into what? The fight for independence. What happened after we got independence? Who betrayed who? Now that would be the question. After independence, who started to betray who? First, neocolonialism has already been entrenched. Imperialism has already been entrenched. And I think in her speech, she mentioned something, that when an African rises within Africans to change the status quo, it is Africans themselves that are used against Africans to either what? Kill the person, dismantle the system, or allow the corruption continue. So as young people, slavery happened in Africa, it happened in the Gambia. It had a lot of negative consequences that up till now we still live with. But how can we change that? That would be the question for young people. When we talk about the issue of victimization, Africans were victims of slavery. From all corners you look at it, Africans were victims of slavery. But since we've moved past slavery, are we still into slavery? No, we are still mentally enslaved. We are still economically enslaved. When you look at the issue of aid, when you look at the issue of donorship with regards to our governments run on debt. That is why I would encourage you guys to go today and learn how much of a debt that the Gambia has. Who is going to pay it? Prof was saying in 15, 20 years to come, it would be us inside the offices. Your children that are yet to be born are going to continue paying those debts. Now, when you look at, let's move from slavery and come to now. Right now, who are the victims? It is the people, the common people, the poor people, the underprivileged people, young people in the Gambia, women, even the elderly. Everybody is a victim of what? The system. And I think Prof mentioned something that is very important, that we need to start questioning the system in which we exist. Until then, the victimization would continue. And until then, we would continue to wander, to toil and moil for development that would come. But if it comes, it would continue to favor the few people who are within high echelons of power. I think that answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Awe. Do you want to add something to that? Sir? Yes.
I say basically he summed it up all, because slavery as a human condition slavery happened in all societies. You know, I mean, you had the Greeks, you had the Romans, you had all societies have gone through the stages of slavery. But African slavery was much different, because it was a chattel slavery that made the difference. You know, chattel slavery, you get somebody to work for you. It wasn't originally just a racist thing. No, because capitalism, the development of capitalism was presumed and based on slavery. It was the production of the resources that created the labor. And when the labor increased, just like he said, industrial revolution, things began to change. In societies in Europe itself, you know, even the Europeans, like I say, you know, they had Europeans to this thing, but that's where it changed. When the market system changes, that's where it changes. So you do find that, you know, when you have slavery, you know, when you have colonialism, then you have neocolonialism. When you have slavery, people work for you. I mean, when you have neocolonialism, you don't need to bring them to Europe or America. Leave them in Africa and give them the products that they will work with, the groundnuts and stuff like that, because you find that it's the products of Africa that develop Europe. So why would you take Africans back to you? You didn't need that. You know, you can leave them in Africa and they still produce for you. And you still create leaders who will rule over the people. That's what you call colonialism. Now, when it when you give them independence, your responsibility, these things, Africans themselves will do the work and send you all the products. Now, imagine, Europe doesn't have too much. The Africans were giving them the food, rice, sugar, everything, but, that they needed. So they didn't need them in this thing. But now, after a certain point itself, Africans themselves would need these things, and they will tell them, okay, you are free. But actually, you are not free. You have come to an other stage, which is called neocolonialism, which is more dangerous. Because, for example, in neocolonialism, Gambia produces rice and produces groundnuts and produces everything. A bag of groundnuts here in Gambia would cost 10 times in America, where you will have here probably $300. I know because I worked in the provinces before as a student. And I went to America. I was surprised when I told them that we were selling this to Britain and America for less than $15 a bag. They were selling it at America for over 1,000 when they produce it and market it. And they ask, why would Africans accept this? And then you wonder why they are poor. Because if you take what I have, you steal what I have, and then sell it and give me less of what I'm supposed to have, what I'm supposed to do. And this is what, as it goes on, they develop capitalism. When capitalism develops, capitalism must have markets to survive. And this is where you start having problems with some of the Europeans who didn't agree with capitalism. They said, if it weren't for African slavery, capitalism would die. And Karl Marx, you probably guys heard about Karl Marx and Lenin and stuff. Marx and others, this was where they say, I want for Africa, Europe won't survive. Some European countries have absolutely nothing. Everything they had was from Africa. So then, now they had Africans that they have to put there. They're wise. And once they did that, they let the African do the dirty job and they just stay in Europe. So, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, you guys going to probably, when you grow up, you will read that. This was written by Walter Rodney, and he was in the distance. It was very, very amazing. But that's what it is. We don't have much time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sen. I think we have another question. You have a question? A poem. We are on question and answers now. If you have a question,
we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you what you have to say.
A question or comment?
A comment, yeah.
no.
Or suggestions.
Yes.
Why we can grow rice in our country? Because we always grow this granite and we import it. We cannot manufacture it in our country. And that reduces our foreign exchange. And the industrialization always go down. And even at the seaside, like this cashews, we always import it. Why? Because I learned that these cashews, they use cashews for make gas, or this oil. Now, why can we also, in the Gambia, we grow rice? Because we import, in the Gambia, mostly we import more rice. And the majority of the Gambia eat rice. Maybe all of them, because in the after.
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
The reason why we don't grow too much rice, he knows. When we went to school in Amitage and stuff like that, I mean, like Georgetown, Janjambure, Kuntahura, and others, people didn't buy rice. They grew the rice themselves. I was born in Kuntahura, right behind our yard. People used to grow rice. But historically, rice and sorghum and some of these things, this is how, that's what we were saying, the end of colonialism and the development of what is called capitalism. Gambia and Senegal and Guinea-Bissau and Casamance, they all used to grow the same thing. In Casamance, matter of fact, they had a revolution caused by a woman from Bissau, from what you call it, from Casamas, they call it Aline Sito Diatta. Remember this, Aline Sito Diatta was fighting the French because the French introduced groundnuts instead of rice. Casamas, they had said, by that time, Casamas was so productive in rice that it can feed all of West Africa, including Nigeria, which had a population of 300. But the French didn't like that because rice is not a cash crop that they can benefit. So they decided that now they're going to grow peanuts, they call it groundnuts. And this is how Gambia and Senegal were forced to do that. When they arrested her, she led a revolution. And most of the people agreed that today, later on, the United Nations found out that Aline Sito Diatta was a hero. How did she see this? Because when you grow rice, you grow what you eat and you eat what you grow. Now, once they change you, it's not much you can do with groundnuts. You don't eat groundnuts as lunch. You don't eat groundnuts as lunch. All you can get out of groundnuts is products and oil. But she saw that they arrested her and brought her to Gambia. And from Gambia, they brought her to Senegal. And from Senegal, they sent her to Gao, where she died. Listen to this. She is the only woman whose statue is in Casamas today, in Bignona or in this thing. When you go through there, just beside you'll find it. And the other one is up Senegal. You know, they call it Ndate Yala Mboj. They had only 2 heroines there. She also has a distance. She refused to let the French tell them what to grow, because once they control what you grow, you have a problem. Then they control your economy. And this is how rice dropped, because people were growing rice and sorghum, millet, and maize. They were self-sufficient. But once they colonized it, they divided Senegal. In 1907, they moved the capital from Bignona to Ziguinchor, and then they made so that they drew a line in Gambia. Get this, you can study it. So Aline Sito Diatta, you have to remember this lady. This was one of the main things she fought with. And she fought the French for a while, because they say she kept telling people, the local people, don't grow peanuts. What can you can't do nothing with peanuts. Everybody who grew rice, after the harvest season, you cut your rice, you keep it this, and you don't have to buy it. It will feed you what? Until the next season. Now, capitalism doesn't work like that. They were introducing capitalism. They say, oh, no, this lady, we have to kill her and stuff. And this is the reason why. Because when Africans keep feeding themselves, they can't exploit them no more. When they send peanuts, groundnuts, ask him. They had two main things. You send them to Europe, make biscuits, make this thing, and fine. Now, today, even the peanuts that they introduced in Gambia after independence, Gambia has independence, you cannot buy what you produce. You go to Senegal, you cannot buy oil. Senegalese, that's what the problem is. That's why they have all this. You growing groundnuts, and you cannot buy groundnut oil to cook benachin. Isn't that a problem? Something is wrong with you. Now the other young ones have come there. They say, wait a minute, we're not going to do that. They have factories outside, Kaula, Linjan. You could buy it from outside. But now you try to go buy this thing in the supermarket. You guys, you ladies know, excuse me. But this is the reason why, because the product is not profitable to them. And once something is not profitable to them, they just keep it out. That's why Africans cannot feed themselves. We used to eat this thing. Now, I'm going further than what I need to. Just give me 5 minutes. Just bread itself is a problem. When there is a problem of flowers outside, you have a problem with bread. Now you send food and you have what, tapalapa and all this stuff. We never had a problem like that. Yeah, because they grew the grains, and it was out of the grains people made this thing. But they made sure that they kill that, and once you kill that, all you make sure is you send them to grow the nuts and stuff. You take the nuts, take it to Europe, make it this thing, and then resell it back. I hope I answered.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Do you have something to add to that, sir? On, yes. That is. Okay. You have a question. Okay. You can come.
Good afternoon once again. Um, like you said, we should think critically to develop the country. But when you come to think of it, we have the pressure group, which influence the bad government decision. We recite poems to make sure still something change. We do protests, but still nothing change. So what do you think we can do again to help develop the country?
For reference, I think I will refer us to the latest protest that happened, the Gala protest, Gambians against looted assets. You knew about the protest, the Gala protest, the latest one, where 27 young people were arrested. Do we think it had an impact at some point? It had an impact. What would you say was the impact? Yes, what would you say was the impact?
One thing, the ones who were involved in the selling of the assets came out and then give out details. The ones we pointed fingers on, saying they are the ones who buy it, they also come to defend themselves that we are not the ones who bought the assets. And none of us was involved in buying, you understand, the assets and then selling it as well. Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone that knew about some of the changes that happened? Something that we noticed happened after that protest? Okay, to answer your question, I think one mistake that the Gambia is making right now is not realizing the demographic of youth we have. So youth, the older generation and this generation are different in so many ways. You know, young people are known to be more assertive, you know, more action-oriented, and they are not very diplomatic at some point. I can tell you, I saw a change. I saw a change. That report, for instance, I reference this because it's a perfect example. That report has been out for years now. And the government, the state stood to say they weren't going to disclose anything about the report until a protest happened. And one thing that was unique about that protest, it was all young people, from politics, from activism, even environmental activists, you know, young people from rural Gambia. Protests sprung everywhere around the country. And the demands were met. We saw the president gave a State of the Nation address. We saw the ministry brought out a list, even though we are still questioning that, but a list was brought, right? And we saw very powerful people in the country coming out to defend themselves, but also, you know, clear their stance regarding the issues. That is what happened when you do what Prof was saying, when you start to question the system. So changes happen. So when it comes to behavioral change and systemic change, it might take a while. It doesn't happen within the blink of an eye. If you look at the Gambia, for instance, we need to change the constitution. We still use the 1997 constitution. The CRC, the 2021, the draft was rejected in parliament. Now we have another draft. Even though changes are being made to it, that too is another debate. But I believe when we do certain things, when we take certain actions, especially as young people, there are changes that we see. And we need to realize these changes. And you know how you need to know those changes? Start watching the news. Start being up to date. Young people should start watching news. Read. Listen to radios. Know what is happening. If you don't do that, you cannot question. And if you cannot question, you cannot be part of the process. If you cannot be part of the process, then you fail to hold your government accountable. Then if this happens, what will happen? Even if changes happen, we won't realize those changes. Because like Prof said, we are conformists in the system. So if you want to know about the system, you learn it, you get involved in the system, and you start to add your voice to the system. So I would say right now we are seeing little changes, we are taking baby steps, but then that is a group of young people. What we need to do is form a unison, form a front of young people that would combat these issues that we face daily.
Thank you, our Prof. Do you have something to add to that? Yes.
I think Awa has very well, she's done a very good job in answering to that question. I think we need to organize as a people. We need to organize in groups based on whatever agenda it is that we wish to pursue. I think we are too lax, and I'm saying that I'm even lax myself. We need to be active, we need to question, we need to challenge our leaders to do the right thing. I understand you're in school, you might be suspended, something might happen to you, but again, sometimes change comes only through risk. We cannot be sitting comfortably and believe that things are going to change. Some people have lost their lives. Some people have lost all the wealth that they accumulated over the years. Look, this is a serious battle. This is a very serious issue as to how society needs to be organized and how it needs to be run. If you wish to be sitting here for the next few years and allow politicians who barely have a high school education tell you how to run your life, decide for you everything that you need to do on your own, then that's really a big problem. I think you need to be active. You need to know what's going on. You need to basically lobby your politicians. The changes are not going to come overnight. It's a struggle between those who hold power and the means of production and those who work it. We are all workers in a way. So what I'm suggesting is, and Awa has done a very good job answering your question, we need to engage on a daily basis. We need to organize. We need to challenge. We need to speak out. We need to write. We need to do everything that would bring attention to the crimes that are being committed in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, give them a round of applause. Do we have another question? Okay.
Good afternoon. My question is, as you said, we are the leaders of tomorrow, but we cannot develop this country without the help of our leaders. But now, the leaders are corrupt. They are not giving us the opportunity to serve our country. And this is one of the reasons why this irregular migration is going on. So what can we do to discourage our youths?
That's a difficult question. And it will probably take a good committee to come together, people who are very conversant with the issues, to come with some solutions. But what I'm saying is, different groups, different ideas can come from different places. And it doesn't have to be a single issue or a single answer. Different ideas can come together and a strategy can be drawn. What I'm saying in the end, providing jobs for young people in Gambia would be a very useful, educating Gambians in a way that they are critical of what they're being taught, rather than just absorbing what it is that they're being told. I think really activism begins by questioning the very issues that you're being taught. We must begin to question, because there are class interests, there are group interests in education. The way we are taught, especially when I was going to school, was to accept everything you were told. And what I'm suggesting to you is question. Question your teachers. Question the system you live in. And once you have that question, I believe things will begin to change. Change is not easy. It is easier to talk about it rather than implementing it. But ultimately, that change is going to have to come from us, nobody else. And change is going to be different from one place to the other. And we have to indigenize what changes we wish to implement. That's a very general answer.
Thank you very much, Professor. Yes, we have one here, then after we'll come to you. Yes, Wage.
Good afternoon to you all. What I have to say is about, regardless of what we are saying, about the development of Africa. Yeah, the development of Africa. Yeah, when we say the development of Africa, we the young ones are the ones supposed to follow the steps or the footsteps of our forefathers, not our fathers. But because right now, the ones in front of us are not following our forefathers. They are not following that one. But when we the youth, the young ones follow your steps, we are going to lose. We are going to lose. But those ones, do you know that we were about to have our freedom? Africa was about to have their freedoms before, but the reason is that we the Africans are the ones. We are not fighting for the freedom of Africa. We are fighting against the Africa. They use us to fight the Africa, not to fight for the Africa. We fight Africa, not to fight for the Africa. That's the some of the reasons we don't have our freedoms. Before the Muammar Gaddafi, that one was fighting for the freedom of Africa. But they use Africans to against him so that we can end up the losses of our freedom. The example, the ones Ibrahim Traore, that one is the best examples of the freedom of Africa. Ibrahim Traore, that man was observing the movement of Africa before he became a president. He was observing the freedom of Africa. And we, the students, right now, the Gambia, the students, when we were students, we used to talk about the freedom of Africa, freedom of Africa. We fight for our governments. But when, until the end that all the Gambians, all the cities, the countries know that you can be a leader, you can be part of the African freedoms. But when you end up being a president or something, and National Assembly members, you will be the mother of the corruptions. You will forget about what you were saying the time you were students. Even when they show you the video of you, you will say that it's a edict. That's what you are going to say. Because right now we are talking about the freedom of Africa, freedom of Africa. We are the ones who change Africa. But when we post to be a leader, we are going to change because of the money, because of corruptions. We follow money than our freedom. That's Africa.
Yeah, basically that's what we were talking about here. What we were talking about here is, that's why African Liberation Day comes with the theme Pan-Africanism. Because in neocolonialism, you are taught that you are different from your next door neighbor. Pan-Africanism, like Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, they even sing about it. Africans have to believe that we are one people. You know, you are not different from the people in Guinea-Bissau or Ghana or anything else. But once we believe that we are different, then we will believe that we will move on different stages. And that's why a lot of people are worried. Pan-Africanism must be taught and understood. All of us are Africans. We can speak different things. But in Gambia itself, it's very common for somebody to meet another African asking him, where are you from? Yeah, the other one will say, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Ghana, I'm from Togo. And then the same thing, even in your local language or local culture, you will call other people that don't speak your language Nyak. It's how we think, who we are. That's why we have some weaknesses in some things. Why we cannot divide, why we shouldn't be divided is because of what we teach our people. And the people in the West, they know this. If you see Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and all the same way, if you are black, you are an African. And then they start from Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, even to Haile Selassie. If you go to the islands, you ask some people in the streets where you from, they'll tell you, what you mean where you from? Don't we look alike? You're black, I'm black. We can't be both from Africa. You can ask me where was I born. And they take it very seriously. These are Pan-Africanists. They believe that Africans have been dispersed all around the world. You have Africans born in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in some places. If you walk in there in a classroom, you think you're in Africa or you're in Nigeria or in Gambia. They look exactly like you, and they're Africans. But the Africans, when they come in and talk to some of the Africans, the first thing they tell them, they'll tell you this in their videos in Ghana, Nigeria, even in Gambia. Where are you from? You from Jamaica? The Jamaicans will say, no, I'm an African, born in Jamaica. When the slave ship left Africa, it dropped Africans everywhere up to Nova Scotia. And everywhere it dropped Africans, Africans had children, and their children are African no matter where they were born. But that concept is what is bothering us. If you see Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, we cannot form a government. Why is that? We speak the same thing. Fulani is spoken from Ethiopia all the way to South Africa. But try teaching that to some intellectuals you see. The first thing you have a problem in language. No people on earth have been successful in teaching their children a different language other than what the children know. Once you teach your child something different, that's what the child is saying. They say it in our local language. Linga nampa, longai gala. You can't be otherwise. And you cannot brainwash Africans to think that any other language but English can develop us, and then you expect that you're going to develop out of that. It won't happen.
Thank you.
What I want to say basically is there's a struggle in Gambia. There's a big class struggle in Gambia between those who have and those who do not. And what I'm suggesting to you is you have a role to play. You need to educate yourselves well, but that's not enough. You have to participate politically to change it. There are a lot of people who are opportunistic. They will do whatever they can to gain what they need to live. There are others, on the other hand, who will work with you, who will work with others with a common mission to bring about change. All I'm saying is you are in a big, big class struggle in Gambia. The haves, the politicians on one hand, and then the poor and the rest of us on the other. The politicians, those in power, the well-to-do, are going to be there doing what they need to do to maintain power and to ensure that you're sitting exactly where they want you to sit. Unless you get up, educate yourselves, and struggle against them, you are going to be in the same position as you were last year. All I'm suggesting is this is not an easy task. You are being educated to join the system. You are being educated to aspire to becoming a permanent secretary. These are okay. But what I'm saying at the same time is, by being a permanent secretary, you become a part of the problem. Not all of them are, but you become a part of the problem. Organize yourselves. Have debates. and hopefully come to some conclusion that would help this country. This country is sinking, whether you like it or not. Nothing seems to work. And if you're aspiring to being, let's say, an accountant tomorrow, your chances are very limited of becoming an accountant. All of you seem to be aspiring to becoming part of the civil service. You want your job, you want your car, you want to work here and there. That's not going to do it. You have to get up and organize yourselves and fight against the system. All of you look very docile. And I'm being very frank here. You seem very religious. And religion is part of the problem in Gambia. I'm not saying religion is bad necessarily. But all of you look so good that you would not get up one day to fight against the system. You must question the way you dress, what you are being told, what you're being taught, and what they want you to become tomorrow. Oh yeah, I want to be this, I want to be that. All I'm saying is, you must question the logic of your existence. And only then can we begin to make change in this country. Yes.
I just want to give an example. Recently, I interviewed a fuller man in the provinces who said he spent 13 years in Spain, but just the last year that he spent there, he decided to come home. Because why? He was, what was he doing there in Spain? A farmer, rearing cattle. And this is the same thing he left in the Gambia. So he decided to come back. He said, since this can make money, why can't we? So he decided to come back. So these are the type of things that will discourage the backway syndrome. Because it's just a mental thinking, changing of the mind. People think that if you don't go to Europe, you won't make it. And people are here that can make it. The man said, even if you go to school, go back. If you feel that you want to be a farmer, go back and do it. Because as Prof said, if you think that you want to be employed, what is behind the employment? At the end of the month, you are paid a salary. That salary, you maybe before the month ends, you've been taking credits, loan. You go and, when you are paid the salary, you go and, when you receive your salary, you go and pay off the debt. Then you start taking credit again until the month ends. So what life is that? So, but that is what will push people to corruption, because the salary is not enough. Nothing is ever enough for anybody, but then the salary is not enough to keep you. So you start doing option. If you are the account section or procurement, you start buying, when you are purchasing something, if this is $15, you write $30 and tell the person to adjust it. Let them, because you know that nobody will quickly cut you, because the credit and debit are the same. Debit the receiver and credit the giver, you see. So these are some of the things that we find in the office that pushes people. That is why the boy was explaining that those same people in the offices now, who we are students, that used to advocate for these kinds of things that we are saying today, are in the offices today being corrupt. So this is what is pushing them. You have to be who you are. You see, I said it in the beginning. If you receive a salary of $1,000 and you want to eat $5,000, you will end up being corrupt, because you have to look for where to get those things if you didn't engage yourself in another business. So it doesn't matter whether you are educated up to the university, but if you feel that there is another business that you can invest in and make money, you need not go to that office that will push you to corruption. And there are even still people who are in the system that doesn't do any corrupt practices, you see. So you can be, but they are few. The majority are corrupt. You can hear the Commission on Local Government. Every day they are explaining the wrong they are doing, but we've never seen them take into account. We are just seeing, since the TRRC, as they said, the constitution, nothing has been done. Since 2016, we've been seeing a lot, but nothing has been done. So this is why we are saying you have to be part of that change. When we have the majority saying no to what is not right, then we will get what we want. Because politicians, they are only after their interests. Prophets have said it. They are there. Even if the president wants to leave, those surrounding him will say, if you go, how will we survive? So these are some of the things that keep them there, you see. So, what those that people, the people that voted for them, what will you benefit? Some of them, they'll never know you again. And they've been coming to house to say, we need your votes, give you little money. You are just calculating the money they give you. You are not calculating, if they are there, what will they do for us? Not only for you. So these are some of the things that we want you to think critically, to know what is best for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Jallo, for that wonderful answer. Okay, do you have another one? Okay, you're welcome.
I have two questions to ask. The other one is, how can education empower the next generation to lead Africa toward full liberation? And the other one is, what role can African youth play in continuing the liberation struggle in today's context?
Education is very imperative for development in any context. And I know there have been criticisms regarding Western education, but it's one thing we cannot go without at this point. It is there already. We use English in our official languages. We learn English. We go to the university. We have our PhDs all in English. And right now, it's a driving force. So the world is a global village. Everybody is interdependent. And when I say education, I don't just want you guys to focus on Western education. This is a mistake that we make a lot in Africa, most of the times. Someone that went to madrasa is very educated. Someone that just stopped at the majlis or at dara, the person is educated. Education comes in different forms. And sometimes it's unfortunate, someone would go to school, but they won't have wisdom also. So you can see, if Prof would agree with me, you can go to Kawur and there's an old man that haven't sat in the four corners of the classroom, yet they are so knowledgeable. And one thing African young people should take pride of is that, learning from the elderly. This is something that we don't do much often. So education is very, very important. Unless you are educated, there are it limits your ability to get involved and to participate, especially as young people. We have been talking about question the system, participate, take your seat in politics. Most of the times, if you are not educated, this is what would limit you, because unless you know what you are trying to look for, unless you know what you are trying to advocate for, it would, like I said again, limit your potential. So if we say, for instance, be involved in politics, but you don't know about politics, probably little you know about politics is mostly in the Gambia. When you say politics, they think it is you being part of a political party. I was doing research a few days ago, and this person, when I asked the person, which political party do you belong to, he said he only belonged to a political party that could suit his interest. Suit his interest means where he can get money. Okay, probably that is what his education gives him, and this person is a principal in a school. But what would your education give you? Like, from what you've learned today, you have been educated today. What does that tell you about your participation in politics? It's about you having to what? Contribute positively to your community and to your country. So education is very important. And as per Prof is here, I know he would like to throw a little light, and I'm saying, on the importance of education. But myself, I would take myself for instance. Education have liberated me. It has liberated my mind, and it has liberated my actions. And what that would do is allow me tell you all these things that I'm able to tell you today. And the second one is about, can you repeat the second one? Mm-hmm. Is getting involved. Dem na ñëw na atata nata, get involved. But how do you get involved? Learn, get educated, read. You know, in the 1950s, there's this writer, I forgot, he said, if you want to hide something from Gambians, you put it inside a book. They will not read it. And no, knowledge is important. He who has more knowledge than you has more opportunities than you have. And when I say knowledge, I'm not talking about just coming to school and going and coming. You try to learn out of the classroom. So for African young people to take up the banner of liberation, we need to get involved. Get involved in your communities, get involved nationally, but most importantly, get involved in the international community. A lot goes on in the international community that kind of boils down to your national issues. And most of the times, we are not conversant with these issues. Today, if the Gambian government goes and makes a decision in the UN, for instance, whether I like it or not, especially if they have ratified the treaty, for instance, it becomes binding on everybody. Okay, we have a dual system. They would have to, domesticate it in our laws. But your government is your representative in the international community. If your government takes debts and the conditions that come with those debts, it affects you as an individual, as a young people in the Gambia. So for you to continue that, get involved, read as much as you can, build your capacity, but also learn from the elderly, learn from people, like knowledgeable people that, God has blessed us with, that live within the country. It's very, very important. And in everything that you do, do not lose sight of your African values. Lately when we talk about the African Union Transitional Justice Policy, for instance, and you are talking to young people, you are telling them African values on especially justice and accountability, how Africans are into law, how Africans' culture respects accountability, good governance. All this existed before colonialism. It's just that the way things were done before and now are different. So these are all things that let us not think that anything good that we are trying to do right now, we are importing it from the West. These things have been existing in Africa long before the West got involved. So let's try whatever we do. Our identity is very important as African people. Identity is important. Today, if you go to the West, they hold so dearly to their identity. For instance, if you read, you come across these people from Ireland in Europe, where they call them the gypsies, for instance. The gypsies get married, let's say at 13, for instance. They are travelers. They have their traditions. You understand? But, okay, when you come to this part of the Gambia, for instance, or you come to Africa, most of the times, and there was this lecture, Prof, that you did at the university regarding the seminar we did with the political science department, that most of the times, even when we read about development theories, they are so Western, they don't even take into account African realities. It becomes a problem. So it is important for young people in Africa to realize that there are good structures that exist in Africa. Africans are not barbarians. We have always had laws. We've always had accountability. We have always been assertive in pursuing our needs. And because of that, we shouldn't do away with our good cultures. I would emphasize good cultures. Let's not do away with that. So that is very, very, very important. So let's continue to strive, as Professor to advocate, be activists of change. But to do that, you need to learn. And after you learn, you need to make sure that you get involved as much as possible. And when I say get involved, don't say we are still young. I cannot go to the National Assembly now. No. You are senior prefects, right? The ones in blue. How many times do you have to argue with students because they are always coming late to school, even though the law says do not come late? Or they are always going out of class when there are lessons? Or when the teacher is teaching, someone is busy making noise, they cannot listen. The change starts from now. The change starts from now. And the more we get older, the more we try to advocate for systemic change. Because unless the system is changed, people cannot adopt good behaviors, because if you go into a bad system, it's either you leave or you become like the system. Yes, I think, yeah, Prof.
That's very good. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, that was great. Huh? Yes. Yes, because we have more girls than boys. Okay. Yeah. So that is good. But boys, you also need to pull up, huh? Please. Okay. Thank you very much for organizing this program. That is NSI, and also it is an honor. It is really an honor for us to sit in front of these honorable people, very important and very great people, okay? And we learn a lot, especially me. I learn a lot from them, and also I learn a lot from you, the students, as well, especially the ones that that give speech and also have their poems read here. I cried. I think for Fatu, I think I have to beat her after. She made me cry. Okay, and that is showing that I have a love for Africa. Okay, and you also supposed to have love for Africa as these people does. All of them have love for Africa and they want the development of Africa, and they are putting that to you people as the youths of today. And tomorrow, you are the ones that are going to lead this country, and you have to lead the country and the continent forward. Make Africa great. Can we all say that? Make Africa great. Thank you. So.
Raise your banners, please. Give them the banners. You can sit down and raise it so that we have the final picture. It was a pleasure being with you people. It was a pleasure being with you people. We appreciate everything. We appreciate your sacrifice to leave home. Today is Sunday. Despite it is Sunday, you came here to celebrate the day with us. So we hope it will impact positively in you, and you have to share with your peers what you've learned here. So we really appreciate from Mr. Diba, Principal Jaju, and Coordinator Jeng. We really appreciate.
Absolutely. And we're going to be working with you. We're going to be visiting your school. We might give a lecture here and there. But ultimately, the change in Gambia that you want to see, you are going to be responsible. We're going to be helping you. We're going to be assisting you in many ways. But at the end of the day, it is you that is going to do it. Thank you so much for coming.
We're not going to leave you alone now. You probably will see us often, because we have some other things that probably we would want to extend here. Absolutely. We have some people who are mathematicians, some are social studies, and so many things. And some probably want to do like computers and stuff like that. They may come in and help out to people who are not good in math or tutoring. If we create the atmosphere, everybody can gain out of that. Because you have some of you, they're very educated, but they have no computers, so no laptops, so nothing. So basically, creating the atmosphere with you people, it will be very helpful, because we are basically into education, and the things we know and we can use over there and bring here, it should be very great. Thank you very much. We are very impressed.
Once again, thank you all, and thank you, NSI, for choosing the Jobe Comprehensive School to organize this program and celebrate the African Liberation Day here. And I think it will not stop here, right? Yeah, inshallah. Okay. Can we give them? Can we give NSI a big round of applause, please? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Okay.